Welcome to the Anchorage Estate Planning and Crypto panel. I'm Nisa Amoyles with A100X Ventures, an investment fund investing in blockchain and crypto, and also a contributor at Forbes. I'm thrilled to be here today to bring these guests to you. First, we have Nathan McCauley of Anchorage. Then we have Joel Revel of Two Ocean Trust and Matthew McClintock from Evergreen Legacy. And I'm going to ask each of the panelists briefly to introduce themselves, starting with Nathan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nathan. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Anchorage. Anchorage is a digital asset bank focused on custody for crypto institutions, institutional investors, high net worth individuals. And as part of that, we're increasingly looking at estate planning and helping out with anything related to multi-generational wealth management.
Great. And Joel?
Thank you, Nisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Joel Revel. I'm co-founder and CEO of Two Ocean Trust. We're a Wyoming-based private wealth and trust company, providing both traditional and digital asset wealth management, estate planning services for high net worth individuals, family offices, and advisors. Before founding Two Ocean Trust, I started my career in investment banking at JP Morgan, and then have for the last 15, 16 years previously been a portfolio manager, most recently at Citadel. Very proud to also sit on the Wyoming Select Committee for Blockchain and Financial Technology, part of the Wyoming legislature here.
Great. And Matthew?
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt McClintock. I'm founding partner of a law firm called Evergreen Legacy Planning. We're based in Evergreen, Colorado, which is just west of the Denver metro. We also have an office in Newport Beach, California. Our practice is national in scope, and our focus is on sophisticated, comprehensive estate planning issues for ultra-affluent individuals, including holders of significant crypto assets.
Great. So we've had a bull market mostly for the past year, and a lot of people have made a lot of money in digital assets. What are some of the reasons people should be thinking about estate planning and trust for their digital assets? Joel, I'll start with you.
Great, thanks. Well, I guess first it's important to understand why you would, as an individual, do estate planning in the first place. Trust and estate planning unlock some very important benefits to ensure that your wealth is passed on with clear instructions to your rightful heirs in a safe, expeditious, and tax optimized manner. And so if you think about shifting that over then to this new asset class, the IRS is going to view anyone's digital asset holdings, whether it's cryptocurrency, NFTs, et cetera, as property in the same way that they would view your stocks or art or wine. And so needing to address those issues and make sure that they're handled safely, securely, and passed along in the most efficient and tax optimized way is what we're focused on right now with our clients. And there are some very important differences between this new asset class and these other traditional asset classes, which I'm sure we're going to get into in this conversation.
Right. Matthew, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Joel really kind of touched on this, but there are compelling reasons that everybody needs to contemplate and take action on significant estate planning. And the way we view estate planning in the realm of crypto assets is, in many respects, the same types of solutions apply whether you're passing on NFTs or fungible crypto assets or conventional assets. Either way, we think that people who have value that they want to pass on to a future generation, whether it's to their spouse, their partner, their kids, whomever, there needs to be an orderly series of mechanisms to make those transfers happen as consistently as possible. And so people who have newfound digital wealth, their needs are just as compelling as the needs of people who don't have digital wealth but have more conventional sources of wealth. There are certainly some challenges with digital assets that I know we're going to talk about, but intentional estate planning has to be taken into consideration for, frankly, it's for anybody. We consider it just the stuff grown-ups have to do. So it's we think that everybody needs to go through this process.
Yeah, and you mentioned there are unique challenges with digital assets, namely custody being a huge one. Nathan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the partnership that you've entered into with 2Ocean called CoinTrust, and how Anchorage is in general solving custody?
Sure. Yeah, we're really excited. I know both kind of institutionally excited to be working together, and I'm also deeply excited to be working with Joel on this. The CoinTrust is really this partnership between Anchorage and 2Ocean to solve all of the complexities around estate planning, particularly for those holders of very large amounts of crypto assets. Whether it be a large Bitcoin position or large altcoin positions. We, as Anchorage, work on the specifically the custody of those assets, the safe and secure custody of those assets. And Joel's team over at 2Ocean works on the trust and estate planning and execution of the proper execution of the trust, which is to say the wills of the people who have set up the trust, in terms of how those assets are allocated into future generations and how those are thought through. This ends up being incredibly important because I think many people in the crypto community think about the best way to hold your assets as holding them yourself, and self-custodying being a way to make sure that you have your assets and you have control over them. This model completely breaks down once you start thinking about the multi-generational use case, passing on wealth, where you start really wanting to say, okay, there needs to be an institution with longevity beyond myself and beyond any one of us here, who can make sure that these assets are held securely, and that the directions that are put into the trust are successfully carried out. So we're seeing quite a lot of people look at this and say, okay, this is the right way I need to do this. This is a significant upgrade from self-custody. Would not want to generate all this wealth and spend all this time generating this wealth just to have it disappear if something terrible happens to me or my family. And they look at this and say, okay, this is something that I really want to do. So pretty excited about this, and the offering we think is going to really meet use cases for a lot of folks within the marketplace. Joel, anything to add on there?
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate the kind words. We're excited to be working with you as well. And I think what's unique about the CoinTrust model is how we've brought together the custody and the work as a trustee in a manner that's optimized for crypto assets. It requires a detailed understanding of how this asset class is different, in many ways superior to traditional investment asset classes, and the technical wherewithal to, on Anchorage's side, both store the private keys securely, and then on our side, having a fiduciary that is capable of ensuring that these assets are held safely and passed on to your rightful heirs. There's within CoinTrust, there are some key features that we've worked on together with Anchorage. The trust and estate planning structure, which is where folks like Matthew come into play, helping to design and implement the agreement that sort of dictates how all this will work. But then the qualified custody of assets, which Anchorage provides, We can overlay a layer of domiciling those assets in Wyoming to provide access to some of the unique benefits of Wyoming's laws around digital assets, multi-signature private key management, the institutional grade trade execution, agency only trade execution, and then of course the performance and tax reporting, similar to what you would expect from any sort of private wealth firm.
So how does this work with probate if you're dealing with trusts and the legalities of passing it on? How will CoinTrust work in that instance?
I might actually defer to Matt and ask him to step in to kind of discuss the differences between having a trust and not having a trust, and how that affects probate and avoidance of some pretty significant disadvantages if you're not utilizing a trust.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess in a very simple way to look at this is that trusts, when structured correctly and administered properly, will entirely privatize the process of managing your affairs in the event you become incapacitated or in the event you die. And we know we're all going to end up there someday. But when you have a will that serves as the centerpiece of your estate plan, that will only takes effect at your death. It doesn't do anything for you in the event you have a stroke, you get hit by a car, you have some other type of illness or injury that renders you incapacitated. A will is not going to do anything at all. And so you'd have to have some other type of solution that would facilitate the decision-making process. And those usually result in court actions. If you have a will and you die, or let's just put it another way, if you have anything other than a trust and you die, you will go through probate in order to facilitate the transfer of your assets from the name of a deceased person to the rightful heirs of that deceased person. Probate is very, very different, in all the states around the country. Some are pretty easy, some are pretty complicated and expensive. All of them are public. And so when you have a trust as the centerpiece of your plan, regardless of what assets are in play, if that trust is validly established and is properly funded, which means you've transferred your assets to that trust, you have now privatized that process. And in the world of crypto assets, a lot of what we wrestled with very early on was, how do you substantiate the ownership of crypto assets in a trust? Because crypto assets are generally seen as digital bearer instruments. So the holder of the private key owns the crypto, just like the person holding the bag of gold owns the bag of gold. And one of the great things that Anchorage provides, and we've got clients with literally hundreds of millions of dollars on deposit at Anchorage. What they provide is that custodial function in order to facilitate the transfer and lawful ownership of the crypto inside a trust. So if the trust creator, the individual who established that, were to become incapacitated or pass away, the crypto is secure and can then follow administration through trustees like Joel, with custodians like Anchorage, to make sure that the trust carries out the trust creator's ultimate intent to pass their wealth to their beneficiaries.
Nisa, if I might jump back in here and build on what Matt said. There is, I think, at a minimum, a revocable or living trust would make a lot of sense for folks with any kind of meaningful crypto assets, any kind of assets, frankly. Then there is this sort of next level of more sophisticated planning that becomes available. And that's specifically where the crypto optimized irrevocable non-grantor trust, that's the CoinTrust, the irrevocable non-grantor piece unlocks some additional benefits whereby you can domicile the assets in a state that is has trust laws that are optimized, updated, flexible, such as Wyoming, that allows things like a domestic asset protection trust to be set up, creating additional layers of creditor protection, increased privacy, and as well taking advantage of what may not be a sustainable lifetime exemption for gift and estate tax right now. We expect that it's set to sunset and come down automatically in 2025, but with the current administration, we could see that happen sooner. So there's some reasons why you might want to take advantage of that gift and estate tax lifetime exemption right now, as well as potentially some other state tax optimization opportunities as well. And Matt, I'm treading into your area of expertise a bit here, but please weigh in if I missed anything.
No,
Well,
I just
I went to law school a long time ago and took a trust and estates course. But there are lots of different kinds of trusts, and you're mentioning a few of them. What you also raised was the privacy implications, right? So if you become incapacitated or you die, does then everything become public knowledge about what you held in digital assets?
not if you do it correctly. I want to circle back to something Joel just touched on as well as this privacy issue. Again, a big part of using trusts in whatever the form the trust takes, trusts are inherently more private than not having a trust, where you have to go through a probate process and render an accounting and an inventory of the deceased person's assets. Joel talked about, he alluded to Wyoming having very favorable trust laws, and Wyoming is one of a handful of states. It's our favorite when crypto is in play, but a handful of states that provide a combination of really sophisticated legal strategies, one of which is privacy. Wyoming is one of the most private jurisdictions in the world, not just in the country. And so for people who are really privacy oriented, there are minimal disclosure rules that Wyoming requires. And certainly the assets of a trust would not be public knowledge. Joel also touched on some really important issues from a tax perspective that I'd like to circle back to, though. For clients with significant wealth, if you're an individual who's pushing 10 to 11 or 12 million dollars in net worth or more, you have a federal estate tax problem for even now. We have done some significant estate planning for clients, many of whom have massive crypto holdings, where we can move wealth out of their estate for estate tax purposes, use the estate tax exemption, the gift tax exemption, and then push all the future appreciation on those assets out of their estate to never be subject to transfer tax again. We also, using trusts very much like the coin trust that Joel is talking about, relocating assets from a tax perspective out of an individual's high income taxing state into Wyoming for income tax purposes, thus avoiding or at least deferring state level income tax on their capital gains. And so there's just an awful lot at play, not just from the privacy and the succession perspective, but there are a lot of tax implications that need to be considered here too.
Right. I want to circle back on security and ask Nathan about, the human element potentially as the weakest link on security. How is Anchorage employing biometrics to combat that?
Sure. So I think one of our core tenets at Anchorage is this notion that security of your assets is paramount. It doesn't do you much good if you come up with an incredible estate plan and then the assets are lost due to some sort of a security breach or some sort of an issue like that. And so at Anchorage, we make heavy use of biometric authentication that identifies the individuals responsible for an account and requires, frankly, a quorum of biometrically authenticated individuals. in order to manage any crypto holdings or move any assets, buy, sell, what have you. And so the coin trust model allows us to be quite flexible there. Obviously, if you were talking about biometric authentication, well, biometric authentication does great when you are capable of filling out administration of your own assets and your own assets. But in cases where you need to involve a trustee or involve other folks or need the system to work, say maybe when you aren't around, you would like to have a set of people able to move the assets that are not necessarily yourself. And so the way that we utilize biometrics here is that biometrics are really a function of the entire team that is responsible for your crypto assets. So in some cases it might be you, in some cases it might be your trustees at 2Ocean that are using biometric authentication to access your assets. What we make sure of is that anytime assets are being moved, we are following the rules set forward in your trust about who is able to access them and how they're able to access them. And they are meaningfully executing the instructions in your trust. And we're utilizing biometric authentication for that. So it may be you yourself that are doing biometrics, or people who have been set up as beneficiaries of your trust, or it might be the team, Joel's team at 2Ocean that is doing that, and they themselves are using biometric authentication in order to administer the trust. The good news here is that in either scenario, all of the assets are protected in our hardware security modules, and that those hardware devices where your keys are stored are only able to move assets in the presence of that biometric authentication. And so you can rest assured that now and into the future, the assets will be kept safe on those hardware devices and only accessed in the presence of biometric authentication. The reason we choose to use biometric authentication combined with hardware security modules is that hardware security modules are the most mature key management technology that exists in the world today. Hardware security modules have been used for decades by the NATO governments, by any of the large banks, and for the most sensitive operations of the intelligence agencies worldwide. Hardware security modules have been the mainstay answer for how to protect cryptographic keys. So Anchorage looked at this and kind of looked at, okay, of all the technologies available to hold private keys, what is the most secure, and what is the most mature, and what is something that we think will be here for decades, if not centuries to come? Which kind of technology we'll be using for that. And for that, we chose what is in many ways the most boring technology possible, been around since the 80s. And we expect that this will be around for a very long time, and will be a safe way to hold assets into the future.
Fantastic. Does anyone want to add to that?
I'll jump in here, Nisa. Thank you. There's an interesting intersection of what Matt was just talking about as it relates to the irrevocable trust and the benefits that are unlocked through an irrevocable or a non-grantor trust, and what Nathan was just talking about with the key management, the multi-signature, and control. And control becomes a very interesting topic to explore here because of the need to sever control of the asset from the grantor, the person establishing this estate plan, this trust. And then you have this self-sovereign asset. And this is what we were talking about earlier, this kind of little bit of tension that exists between this traditional way of optimizing your estate planning and this exciting new asset class that is self-sovereign by design. And so what we're able to do in working with attorneys like Matt is to determine what level of control we need in order to affect the trust and estate plans and unlock those benefits without any risk of a court or a tax authority questioning something later on. But then still giving the individual or the individual's beneficiaries some level of control through the quorum, depending on the particular situation. So the Anchorage model is actually a wonderful design as it relates to our ability to integrate with traditional trust and estate planning that folks like Matt and his firm do.
Great. Matt, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it might just be useful to maybe emphasize the fact that in some respects, crypto, and especially with a multi-sig solution like Anchorage has developed, it really lends itself to the best of modern trust theory, because a lot of what Joel is talking about is the ability to fragment ownership or fragment responsibility within a trust structure. And we've been able to fragment trust responsibilities for a long, long time, where you might have discrete powers held by various individuals within a trust. Maybe somebody is overseeing investments, somebody is overseeing accountings, somebody is overseeing distributions. And so you might have kind of this fragmented control, which is a really interesting thing from a tax perspective. What Anchorage does, especially with the multi-sig protocols that they can put into place, is you can now have a cryptographic signature attached to various pieces, to various individuals, so that you can accomplish the tax objectives and the asset protection objectives that Joel is talking about in these trusts. Because if we've got a client, for example, in California, who wants to establish a trust that will give them certain tax outcomes, then that needs to be an irrevocable trust established in some other jurisdiction like Wyoming, with a trustee in Wyoming like Two Ocean. But maybe they don't want to give Two Ocean complete sovereign control over their crypto. Maybe they are going to fragment some control to other people that they trust, in order to still get the tax outcomes, but still be able to have some safeguards against possible loss of keys or mismanagement. So it's really an interesting structure to create what's called these directed trusts in a cryptographic multi-signature control.
Well, I think we're almost out of time. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to share some parting thoughts, predictions, anything else you'd like to add, Nathan?
Sure, I can say a little bit more. I mean, I think this is something that we're finding a lot of people like to avoid thinking about. There's kind of a no one likes necessarily coming up with a plan here. Sorry, almost sneezed. But at the same time, it ends up being once you've kind of thought through it, what we're finding is a lot of clients really appreciate the peace of mind of knowing that there is a plan, especially as we're looking to something over the next decade or so, where there's going to be an increasing value to many of these assets. It becomes increasingly important to make a plan here and kind of make a structured and thoughtful plan around this. Whether you are someone who is buying the assets themselves, or if you are a crypto founder who has been looking at, hey, how do I manage my asset base here, to individuals who have been involved in projects and have ended up with a significant ownership of some crypto assets. There ends up being a big need to think through this and to do thoughtful, careful planning, and we're happy to help there. And we're finding that a lot of people that are coming this way really appreciate the structure that we've put together with all of this.
Right, because we know if you don't do it, look what happened with Matthew Mellon, right? Or you can lose what you've amassed, and even though it might be uncomfortable to plan, it's still necessary as an alternative.
That's right.
Joel?
I think this is a really exciting time for digital asset investors. A lot of what we've talked about today would have been very hard to do, at least in as seamless and efficient way as we're discussing today, with the sort of legal framework and regulatory oversight that's available today. For high net worth holders of digital assets, their biggest concern is, how do you protect this wealth? How do you safely hold it? How do you manage it in a way and then transfer it onto your heirs? And these issues aren't new to high net worth individuals. The solutions in trust and estate planning have been around literally for centuries. What's new is how that these solutions can be optimized now for digital assets, and how a proper trust and estate planning structure can be layered onto your portfolio of digital assets. So we're excited to be working with Nathan and with Anchorage, and really excited to be able to share this solution with our clients.
Great, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to echo the comments, this is a very exciting time in the industry. People think of estate planning as kind of this stodgy, old-fashioned industry, but it's constantly changing. There are constant pressures from taxing authorities. There are constant pressures and new opportunities that open up in other jurisdictions. And one of the things that Nathan spoke to is just right on, and I want to underscore that. It seems to me, at least, that this is part of the industry growing up and maturing. And as anti-fragile as the blockchain generally is, there is a lot of fragility in the ownership of the crypto assets. And if you die with your private key and no succession protocol, all the wealth that you have built is going to be, it's never going to get to your loved ones. And I just cannot emphasize strongly enough the importance of proactive planning, of careful, proper planning, and of really securing custody of your digital assets, because this is how the asset class grows up.
Very well said. Thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Nisa.
Thanks,
Thank you, Nisa.